Hey everyone out there, you're listening to The Blender, where we mix it up around here. I'm DJ Starlight, and this is 95.1 KBCM Monarch Radio, the voice of Valley College, streaming 24/7 at kbcm.live and on Twitch at Monarch Radio. Today's topic is online or on the line, coming face to face with the new virtual reality. And joining me today is my guest, Philip Suba. Thanks for joining me, Philip.
Oh, good morning. Thanks for having me back. This is really great.
It's always a pleasure having you on the show.
Likewise.
Always a pleasure. So we're going to jump right into the fact that, technology has really taken over a lot of different aspects of people's lives.
Yes.
The world of social media, cell phones, tablets, and other technology has kind of drawn a barrier with people, the way they communicate and the way that we're actually living our lives these days. How has this affected us? I feel like, has it hindered us? Has it helped us? Or has it made it better for us?
Well, I think technology in general is always going to help people. I think that maybe we underestimated just how much it was going to take over our daily activities, but for sure, it is helping us advance as a society. The question is, how much of it is going to take over our lives?
Yes, and how much has already taken over our lives? Because according to some of the statistics, it has actually become somewhat of an obsession, an addiction with these devices. And so that turns into kind of a negative way, or I don't know if you want to use the word negative, but in a different direction. You know what I mean? When it takes over certain aspects of your life, any addiction is not a good thing.
Well, I don't want to say that everyone is addicted to things, but we've definitely become more dependent on technology, especially with everything that's been happening the last 2 years. It kind of forced us to really just turn to technology and to social media as an outlet for not being able to see people face to face. So, there are definitely a lot of advantages to it, but I think as we start to come out of any of the issues that we've had in terms of being able to see people in person, being able to interact face to face, how much of that technology reliance are we actually leaving behind, or are we still hiding behind it is the question.
That is a big question, because if you think about it, a lot of people prefer to be behind a camera, behind a phone, in order to, and instead of being face to face, which is limiting people's way of communicating. The face-to-face thing puts more a personal spin on things, a more of a bond on things. When you're just behind technology all the time, you lose something.
Oh, for sure.
You're losing something. That's one of the big questions here is and according to the psu.edu, it says that the impact on interpersonal communication on this current generation actually is a hindrance. They said that, the communication that the skills that they should have when they communicate face to face is being watered down, because the ability to express thoughts face to face, have actual touch of communication is all being lost behind the fact that they're constantly using these devices.
Well, let's take a very basic example here. It's so common to send a text message, to send an email, or to do anything virtually. Whenever anybody gets a message from somebody that they know, or maybe even somebody that's just an acquaintance, what you're actually doing is that you're actually thinking, okay, how is this person coming across in a text message?
Yes.
Okay, are they really meaning to say this, or what kind of tone are they taking? You don't have that anymore, so you really rely on, how well do I know this person? If they're sending me this message, are they annoyed? Are they frustrated? Are they just being short because they don't have time? If you are actually talking to somebody over the phone and hearing their voice or seeing them in person, you can pretty much gauge from their gestures, from their movements.
Yes.
You can
Facial
infer a lot of
expressions,
things
all
from
that.
all of
Yes,
their expressions. You can't do that through text. And I see this a lot, even in the workplace too. When someone sends an email and it's a very short reply to somebody's email, they think, well, that was really short. Are they just not wanting to help me, not wanting to be cooperative?
Yes.
Or the most common one, when you write in all capital letters,
Oh,
people automatically assume that you are being reprimanded or you're being yelled at.
Screaming or yes,
Sometimes that
yes.
might be the case, but
Right.
other times,
It might be just a hit of a button. The cap, or you hit the wrong, cap button, and then it ends up looking like that.
and then what happens after that?
Yeah.
You assume that somebody is doing that. So what could you do in that situation? You could actually just pick up the phone or go to talk to the person if they're nearby and just say, hey, I just wanted to get some clarification on this or what have you, right? But instead, with that simple action right there that may not have meant anything, people can take a lot from that. And they'll assume,
yeah.
oh, well, if they're going to be like that with me, I'm not going to talk to them. I'm going to be short with my answers too. I'm going to find a way to not have to talk to them.
Right.
And that leads to a downward spiral that you're talking about.
Yeah, yes. I mean, it makes all the difference. Having a face-to-face interaction makes all the difference with the way that you communicate with others. It brings empathy into your life because you can actually, feel if someone gives you a story about something, how they actually feel about that. Instead of you giving a baseline answer like, oh, okay, you just feel that way, you can give a true in-depth response to that person if you're in their presence because you can see how they're feeling to be able to respond to, that way. And again, a lot of this stuff has caused other conditions such as anxiety, social anxieties, and just panic attacks and so on behind the fact that you're, so enclosed with this type of thing, it causes these problems.
And you don't know how to act in front of people
There
anymore because you're so used to communicating via these messages. I'm actually glad that you brought that up about this type of social anxiety or bringing on any kind of panic attack. The thing is, those are extreme cases, but I can see, even in other people that I speak to, the way that you communicate now, even if you see them face to face, it's almost like we're forgetting how to talk to each other.
Yes, I
right?
totally agree. Yes.
And it's almost as if it is more of an effort to try to think about what to say because you're so used to just, okay, you know what, I'm not in the mood right now, so I'll just send this message or I'll just send an email. Or maybe I just won't answer a message because I don't feel like talking right now.
Right.
Or maybe, in the extreme case, you block them.
There you go.
Right? You
and
can't
that,
really
all that is an option.
Exactly.
But when you are, face to face with someone and you have to communicate, like back in the day, there was no getting out of facing situations. You either had to face it right then or not. And most likely you did have to face it. There was no texting the person saying, you know what, I won't be able to show up to dinner tonight. It's either you called them and said it and they could hear in your voice whether you really intentionally didn't want to show up or not. Now you could just text and say, I don't feel well. And then that's the end of it.
And people will usually do that closer to the last minute.
Yes, they do.
Because they don't realize that they don't really want to do it. And, something came up. Oh, I am not feeling well. Oh, something is going on and I can't talk about it right now, so I can't show up.
Yeah.
And that really affects your relationships with people.
It does, especially when it's continuously happening, which it seems to be that's the case, People keep using that as a tool to get out of things or otherwise, I just feel like we have to bring back that interpersonal relationships. Making time with people to be together, to be at dinners, birthday parties, etc. And when you have these attacks, what do you do about it? That's the other question.
Well, I think the first thing is that you have to understand what is actually happening. I don't think that people that are experiencing this necessarily know that their anxiety or any kind of depression, that's even on the opposite side, the opposite extreme. I don't think that people realize just how much they may be too dependent on technology. Okay, so when you're posed with a situation where you're actually going to be speaking to someone face to face, it does make you feel very unnerved. Okay, so one of the things that a mentor once told me about anything that you're feeling in terms of feeling anxious or any type of anxiety, or if you're feeling a panic attack come on, some people don't know that it's happening to them until it's actually happening. One of the things that is most pronounced in any of this is how your breathing is. Okay? It's more of a rapid breathing. It's very uncontrolled. There's no rhythm to it. Okay, so your body is responding to what you're feeling at that moment because it's thinking that you're going to need to take some action that you're not necessarily ready for.
Right.
Or you could be ready for it and your body's just telling you that you have to do this. So the first thing that people should do when they're realizing that this is happening, they have to find a way to regulate their breathing. And this doesn't have anything to do just with spirituality, because I know a lot of breathing exercises also are involved in meditation and grounding yourself, but this is more of a physical activity for
Yes,
yourself.
right.
When you're heightened and your emotions are heightened, your body is going to respond accordingly. It's almost as if you are doing a workout for yourself. Okay?
Right,
When
right.
people work out, whether they're lifting weights, whether they're doing any kind of cardio, whether they're doing Pilates, anything that requires physical activity, you have to warm up before you actually get into that activity. And then when you're doing that activity, for however long you're doing it, there's also that cool down period.
Yes.
It's the same thing with a performer. You can't just expect yourself to go and start speaking or singing right away. There has to be a warm up. There has to be a conditioning
Yeah,
of your
before.
vocal cords, of your whole body, all of your muscles that are entailed in it. So think of an anxious state as you already being thrown right into the middle of that activity. You had no warm up, but now is your chance to cool down. How do you cool down? Very easy to say that. You have to focus on your breathing. And a lot of people say, well, I don't know how to focus on my breathing. I'm already in a very panicked state when it's happening, or I just feel uneasy. So I give people this tip. Think about your favorite song, your favorite fast song, and your other favorite song that's a slower song. Maybe it's a ballad, maybe it's something, an older song that you like.
Yes.
Those two differences right there will actually help establish your rhythm.
I can see that.
And as you go from a fast song and you think to that slow song or anything of that nature, you're relating to a rhythm.
Right.
And your
right.
breathing can follow that rhythm. Most of the time when you're going through something like this, you panic and you don't know what to do. But if you're aware of what's going on and you're aware that you can help relax that state, that's one of the ways that I've found.
And
most
that
people
sounds very, very helpful, because as I was looking up some things, that was the number one thing on the suggestion list for if you're having anxiety attack. Breathing was the number one thing on the list. And another tool that I had found too when I was doing it, it's called PTSD Coach.
Oh,
And it's
okay.
actually a guide. So like you just said, if you don't know how to bring yourself down yourself, this PTSD Coach app actually guides you through. It tells, like, one of the things it says, how high is your anxiety level? And it'll give you a scale 1 to 10. If you put 10, it'll say, do you want to talk to someone, or do you want to get the tools to help yourself? If you say, I'd like to get the tools, it'll walk you through the way of bringing yourself down. It'll say, sit in a chair,
Yes.
or lie on the floor.
Yes.
It'll say to put your hands beside your side. Put your hands on your chest. Something. It'll walk you through the way of doing that. So that's another suggestion for the listeners, that if you didn't know how to get yourself down with the breathing technique, that PTSD Coach app. It's a free app. It helps guide you through different scenarios of anxiety or depression or whatever you're going through.
Isn't it interesting that you probably found all of that information online, and we're talking about how technology
Exactly.
is changing the way that we do things? But here's the thing with that. I don't know if you remember, at least when I was growing up, when we didn't have these tools, we actually had to be a lot more resourceful.
I do
you
remember.
get thrown into a library and you have a card catalog,
Yes,
you have all these
yes,
encyclopedias.
exactly.
Now you think about everything that is available at your fingertips. This is a very interesting thing, though, that we are talking about things that we can easily find online.
Yeah.
But I have to say that if you don't know the foundation for which the technology was developed, it's going to mean a lot less to you, and you're going to appreciate it a lot less.
I so agree. Yes,
I think that there's still something to be said, even just with books. I think it's great that we have things like Kindle, we have audiobooks, we have things that you can read online. I still enjoy
An
getting
actual book.
a paperback or
I
a
do too.
hardcover book.
Yes.
There's just something that makes me feel like I am actually doing the reading.
That's right.
Because it's the whole experience of it.
Yes.
It's not just looking at it online and filing it away. Although if you don't have any room for books, I suppose that's also not a good thing. But even just, I don't know how you feel about this too. Like whenever I have to prepare for something,
Yes.
at work, anything that I'm working on as a project, I like to write my notes down.
I like to write
and
notes
I find
as well.
less and less people doing that. But the thing is, it's going straight to a computer, a tablet, a laptop, and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there is something to be said about what you actually are writing,
Yes.
how it's registering, and then maybe putting it.
And it brings me to the point of today's show. So I wrote notes for today's show on my computer instead of writing it like I would typically do. And I went to print it and I was out of ink. So it goes to show you that, writing it in a book where you can reference it back is to me, much more reliable than a computer. Because if it crashes at any point in time, and just like my printer, you are left to figure things out. And if you don't have it in black and white or somewhere that's tangible, you have to be able to reference back to it.
Well, if
anything was to go down.
I mean, let's just take what happened today. There are technical difficulties with the radio station. What do you do in that sense? Okay. Are you going to say, okay, well, this is just it. I guess we can't do anything this week. No, we have to find an alternate way to do things.
Yes.
Because you had your notes down, because we were prepared to talk about something. We found an alternate way to make it happen, to post it, and still let people know that it's available for listening.
I so agree.
So it's all about what are you going to do when one form of technology may fail you?
Yes,
Do you have a backup plan? Do you know what else you could do? There's always something that you can do, even if something's not working. So you didn't have your printer. What did you end up doing? I bet you ended up taking a picture of your notes.
I did.
Right? So,
I did. So I, again, relied back on my device to do that because it was too short a notice to write that back down. But if I had had it written in a book or, on something, I would have been able to reference back to the book instead of having to take a screenshot of my notes.
Well, here's the thing. I think if there is a balance between what you are using with technology and what you are using from your own devices that you can write with, that you can, anything that you can do, there's that balance that exists. The problems that we're seeing a lot is that there's a reliance too much on one side than the other.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have technology. I think it becomes something uncontrollable when you feel that you have no other recourse except to use this.
And I so agree, because when it starts to turn into a addiction or like some type of obsessive situation, that's when it's not healthy. It becomes unhealthy. And actually, some of these compulsive, obsessive ways of utilizing these devices have caused certain behaviors. And they actually have created one specific name. It's called nomphobia. Nomphobia is the fear of being without your mobile device.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, and that is it's created by constantly being on your phone, and it creates a psychological addiction to having anxiety when it's not near you or when you don't have it. And that's an actual word, an actual fear.
Well, I can honestly say I probably am guilty of that sometimes too, because you have to be online for work and you hear an alert.
Yes.
Is it a work email? Is it a text from work? Is it anything? So I can see how that would happen to other people too, because if you're already so dependent on it to receive notifications, if your job requires that for you to be on call or for you to be available, you just naturally start thinking that you always need to be alert when any kind of message comes through.
Up with the notification bells and so on and so on. Yeah.
So I can see how that would easily
And in fact, there's 3.8 billion smartphone users out there in the world. So think about how many people are obsessively addicted to that.
I remember one of my professors telling me that smartphones is actually a very interesting name because it can do many things that we are usually capable of doing. Maybe it takes a little more time, but he always told me the smartphones will make you more stupid if you're not careful.
And that I so agree with. I definitely agree with that.
Well, even just forgetting your cell phone or your laptop or your tablet at home, I didn't realize until about maybe 5 years ago or so just how much I depended on it for numbers of people.
Oh.
So what I started to do then, there was one day that I left my phone at home and I was at work and I didn't know, I memorized a few people's numbers, but other numbers, what did I end up doing? I had to go on the internet, I had to go online and find these things. So after that happened, because I write notes, I
Yes.
started to write down the numbers somewhere
And it's
in a
so
notebook.
unfortunate because if you happen to lose someone's phone number this day and age, if you don't have a backup, you'll never
Yeah.
find that person other than social media. You may find them again if they're actively using it. But otherwise, you'd be just out of luck, you know?
And I mean, it's just a good thing that there are some people that can memorize numbers.
Yeah.
And the only reason that I started memorizing numbers, and I don't know if you remember this, when I was growing up, it was a struggle to find a phone. So I always had to
Oh,
go to a
yes,
payphone,
yes, yes.
carry a bunch of quarters with
Yes,
me, and I
yes.
would always try to remember. Okay, I have to call this person.
Yes.
We didn't carry things around that had numbers.
That's
Nobody
right.
carried an
Their phone,
address
and
book,
as I already say, your
in
black
their
book
back.
and all that.
No,
Yeah,
that
no.
stuff has to stay in your nightstand with the other
Exactly.
important stuff.
Exactly.
So you would remember these things, and you would go to the payphone and call somebody
Yes,
too.
yeah, yeah.
And so now it's like when you forget it,
It's
what do you do? And if
you
you don't have
panic.
it anywhere,
You panic. You panic. If anything happens, you immediately go to the left and say, what am I going to do now if I can't get in touch with this person? Because you don't have any memory of their phone number. I mean, unless it's a number you call regularly, and even then, you still probably wouldn't know it by heart. Because, like, some people that I talk to all the time, I couldn't tell you what their phone number is, and I talk to them all the time. You being one of them.
I mean, do I even know my own number? Oh no, I do.
Yeah.
That I do know, but when am I going to call myself unless I lose my phone, right?
Right, right. Which goes back to another habit that it's called phubbing. And phubbing
Phubbing.
is another word that describes a habit which is ignoring a person or one's surroundings because of the use of their phones or device.
Huh.
So it's called phubbing. So basically, you're ignoring you're in a crowded situation or in any situation, and you're just you're focused on your phone. You're ignoring everything around you, any conversations going on, which again breaks the communication down. Because why would you be so focused on your device if you're in a room full of people? I mean, it just goes to show you how the social divide is happening right there.
Well, that's very interesting. I've never heard about that before, but now that I do think of it, if someone is using their cell phone or mobile phone in any kind of social situation, it probably goes right back to the idea of, well, okay, I have to be social, but I don't want to be that social. So maybe this will satisfy the requirement of being out with people, but
Hmm.
I'm just going to be on my phone because I don't want to get rejected if I talk to somebody, or I don't want to get looped into a conversation that I really don't want to be in.
Right.
So it's kind of their compromise.
It's like
I
their
guess.
exit
Yeah.
strategy, It's like, okay, I've got this if this doesn't work out. Like before, if your exit strategy was to say what you had to say and, to the person, and you had to say it a certain type of way or it'd be taken a certain type of way. So it's like you had to make sure that you said what you said to get out of the situation. You couldn't just get on your phone and everyone knew what that meant.
Yeah.
So and then there's another word for it, for using your phone. It's called snubbing, and
Snub.
snubbing is another way of ignoring someone. It's a habit that just deliberately ignores people because you're on your phone, whether that be at any situation. So that's another one. It just I mean, even if the person wants to have conversation with you, you're still focused on your phone.
Wow. Well, pickpockets would have a field day with a snubber, I guess.
Well, here's another one
Wow.
that you may not have known. It's called smombies. And
Smombies.
smombies is two words. It's a smartphone, and a zombie. So the two together make you a smombie, which is a person who walks in the street slowly and without paying attention to their surroundings because they're completely focused on their phones.
Well, there must be a lot of those in Times Square in New York.
There's
then,
got to be.
because not only do they move slowly, but they're probably on their phones too.
So yeah, and statistically, there's been a lot of accidents, people getting run over.
I mean, I could
by just
definitely see
looking
that
down.
happening just by looking down and accidentally falling into, I don't know, a
Yeah.
manhole or a
Or
pothole or
something.
something. Oh, I didn't see that there.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
interesting. A
Yes.
smartphone zombie.
Yeah, it's called a smombie.
Well, as long as they don't end up eating the rest of us that are alive, I guess I'm okay with it.
Or
I
just
can
throw them
deal
your
with it.
phone. Maybe that'll stop
Well,
them
maybe
from coming at you.
that maybe that'll stop it. Here's a phone. Look at this
Just
nice
chuck it
shiny
to him.
phone.
And don't even hand it to him. Just throw it at him.
Wow. Yeah, well, at least we came up with a remedy for that.
Yes,
Smiley,
right?
huh?
Yes,
Wow.
yes. So these words are appearing out of these behaviors that have been created. So that's why I said these have really monopolized a lot of people's behaviors, and a lot of behaviors have changed in general, if you think about it, not just using your phone, but just in communication altogether, which jumps us right into the other topic of how people are dealing with their lives after the pandemic when they were together all the time. Did it break relationships up, or did it pull relationships back together?
I mean, I think it did both,
Stronger.
to be honest with you, right? I could think of examples of people that didn't get affected by it, and I guess because their bonds are so strong in a partnership or in a family setting that being together, they knew how to compartmentalize, okay, well, this is the time that I need to do for myself, and this is the time that I'm going to be with you. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, too, I know many people that have been home, and not just because of work, just in general.
Yeah.
And they're getting to know their partners, their husbands, their wives, their boyfriends, their girlfriends on a completely different level.
Yes, I
because
so
of the
agree.
amount of time that you're spending together.
So agree.
I think that as much as we need that social interaction, there's also a part where you do need to disconnect a little bit and remember what your own identity is. But now you get thrown in this situation where you're together, and that space or that personal space that you need is no longer as personal as you thought.
That's right.
So if you don't have a solid foundation for your own relationship with someone, that foundation crumbles.
Yes.
In times like this.
So agreed. Because
either that or you have a baby.
There you go. Which I think a lot of babies came out of the pandemic. I definitely think that.
You're going to be invited to a lot of baby showers and baptisms and first communions in the next couple of years.
I so agree with that. Because if you think about it, people just had coming and goings with their relationships.
Yes.
Their partner would go out, you'd be coming in. And then by the time you guys had your coming and goings with your work schedules, it was time to go to bed. So there was no real time to like be stuck with each other, where it was like there was nowhere to go. Work was home and home was work.
Yeah.
So there was no getting away from the person. It was no coming and going. You're here for lunch. I'm leaving from lunch. Any of that stuff. We're here. So it either actually bought stuff, like I said, either closer or divided it up, because you start either getting to know the person in a better way, like, oh wow, this is something I didn't discover about them, or wow, this is something I didn't know and I don't like.
Yeah.
So it could have went either way.
Yeah, and it did.
And it did.
Go
Yes,
either
it
way.
did. Yes, it did.
And here's the thing, even if you found things to do during whenever you were locked down or not being able to do anything, people went out, they were exercising, they were doing stuff, they were trying to find things to do. The fact that something is changing and that you're not allowed to do something, or you're being told that you can't do something, that actually does have a very psychological effect on people. Okay? If you take them out of a usual setting where they're permitted and have the freedom to do things that they want to, and now you're in a more restrictive setting, for a period of time, and also on top of that, a very indefinite period of time. Okay, so as much as you try to do your usual daily activities, you're not in the same situation that you were before we entered this pandemic. And now that we're mostly out of it, it's as if you are having to figure out a new way of doing things, a new routine.
Yes.
Even if you haven't really changed the things that you're doing, something definitely has changed on a psychological level.
I so agree.
And I
with
don't
that.
mean that in the way that you're becoming,
crazy or anything.
Crazy,
Yes.
mental case or
Yes,
anything.
no.
But, there are some people that have definitely become like that because they have not enjoyed what's been going on for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
But this is
Speaking for the other half of the people that didn't go crazy, though, is what we're speaking for.
Exactly.
How things have changed with their spending habits. And their, just.
People don't want to go to stores anymore because they got so used to buying online.
Yes.
So their spending habits haven't changed, but how they spend and how they choose to buy things has changed.
It has. It has. And then the thing behind that too goes into a situation where it's like, can you really afford to keep spending like this online when we're in a situation now where food is ridiculous, inflation is crazy, but you'll still spend on frivolous things just to make yourself feel good because you're you know, trapped inside, or, you know, you want to feel good about something, so you'll buy things just to kind of make up for it.
And that's a very good point. I mean, prices are going up everywhere globally. But the thing is, like you said, there are these things that even if the prices are going up, there's always going to be a way to find to get it. Okay, because it's something that holds some sort of sentimental value to you, or something that is part of what you need to do to feel like a whole person. Like, okay, so buying this
Right.
makes me feel better.
Right.
Okay, I'm probably gonna have to pay 1.5 times to 2 times more, but that satisfaction that you
Is
get
what
from
you
doing
want.
that
Yes.
is actually giving a person a sense of, I hate to use this word, normalcy.
Yes.
Okay, because
Yeah.
everything has been so up in the air that you have to try to figure out, well, what can I hold on to
Yes.
and continue moving forward. But the thing is, when you hold on to something and you try to move forward, that's two opposite things.
That's right.
Okay, so you basically are doing what will make you feel good in the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, because most of the time it's because you are not wanting to face something that is a bigger issue on a personal side. And let's face it, this pandemic has really affected everybody.
Big time.
Even if somebody says, no, it's not a big deal to me,
No,
it's just another virus, it has affected the way people think. It has affected their opinions of other people.
That's right.
And therefore their interactions with people. So instead of really trying to find a way out of this, we are getting out of it, but we're not leaving behind the opinions
Right.
and the changes in
Right.
habits. It's kind of staying with us.
Right.
So even if this cause of it, or the catalyst for all the things that people were feeling before, is being left behind, people are still hanging on to
What they call
whatever.
normal.
Exactly.
And my question to that is, what was normal before now, other than us having a virus and stuff? So when people say, let's go back to normal, like, what is going back to normal, when there really should be a sediment of what we should do to go forward? What should the new
Exactly.
normal is not going to be. You shouldn't want to go back to whatever that was, because that you want to keep elevating to another level. So when you keep saying the normal, let's go back to normal, like, how do you interpret that? Because I interpret that as saying, well, let's go back to what we've always known, and that might not always be a good thing. Going back to what we've always known.
Well, I think when you say going back to normal, it's something implying of what your comfort zone is.
That's what
you're able
that's
to do.
perfectly
Right?
said. Yes.
So
Yep.
I think everybody's sense of what we call normal is different for everybody. Okay, there are some people, even before all of these problems started happening, that they just preferred to have that time on their own and to be by themselves. Once in a while, we'll have some social interactions, be with friends, be with family, but they need that time not to be introverted. I don't think that it makes you an introvert, but you need that time to recharge. Okay?
Yes.
Then you have the other people that really thrived on these social interactions and getting together and doing things, and then all of a sudden being told that you
You
cannot.
cannot.
Okay?
The only
And
way that you can do it is through technology. So that's right.
Okay, so we're seeing a big shift now.
Yes, yeah.
Because those people that wanted that are actually okay
Yeah.
with not really doing it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But then you have other cases of people that were very social before,
Yes.
and now they don't want to come out
Yeah.
of seclusion. Okay, because they don't want to put themselves in a position where they're putting themselves out there again and then having to figure out what to do. And I think that really what we're looking at here is when people are starting to make changes in their lives, okay, because life changes
Yes.
implies exactly what it is.
Yes,
It changes
yes.
your life.
It does.
Okay?
Yes.
It's also an opportunity for you to do things differently. What worked well in 2019
That's
and
right.
before
Right.
is not necessarily going to be the same thing that you need to do now.
Now. Right.
So it's
right.
and that brings up another topic too. During this whole time of having to be on lockdown or having to be on shutdown for some reason, okay, it makes people think about things that they may have regretted
Yes.
doing
Yeah.
or not doing,
Yes.
and it builds resentment either to yourself or resentment toward another person. It makes you think, and it really puts you inside your head. Okay, I mean, I know that many years ago, back in 2013, I I lost so much in my life, and I just kept trying to pick the pieces up and go, but it seemed like every time there was one thing, another thing would happen a month later.
Right.
And then just when I got past that, I ended up, the three things that happened, the third thing affected me the most, which was the loss of my father.
Okay.
Okay. And I think people that have experienced loss during these times right now in the last 2 years, it has hit them even more.
Right.
Okay. Because now it's like you have to rely on technology. You have to attend
Yes.
a funeral over Zoom,
yes,
okay,
yeah,
or
yes,
some sort
yes,
of virtual platform.
yes.
People that were hospitalized, maybe it's not necessarily with COVID-19, maybe it was another illness.
Yeah, right.
They cannot
Go into
be
the
with their
hospital.
loved
Yeah,
ones.
right.
Again, you are dependent on technology. Imagine having to say goodbye
Oh
to
my
someone
gosh, I cannot.
over an iPad
I
or over a
cannot.
tablet.
I cannot.
Okay, so if I felt that kind of grief before in 2013,
Oh,
and
gosh.
it was a long time before I could really feel the full effect of getting over the loss and focusing on moving forward. Can you imagine how people feel now when when they have not been able to interact socially
Right.
and do that? That has very lasting effects on people. Okay, and again, that becomes a breeding ground for regret and for resentment.
I totally agree with that. Yes, yes.
And so a lot of people will say, well, you're presenting all these issues. What's the solution? Well, there's no one solution that is going to fit
It's
everything.
not a one size fit all.
And with technology doesn't have to be a problem.
Right.
Okay? I think the main focus as technology continues to evolve, and it's constantly evolving.
Constantly.
So are people.
Yes.
People constantly evolve.
Yes,
okay?
yes.
So what is the right balance of you still being in touch of how you feel as a person and what technology can do for you? Because right now, 30 years ago, we pretty much were predicting that computers were going to get smaller. We'll have laptops, we'll have tablets, we'll have smartphones. I don't know if you remember the first kind of transportable phone that came out. For me, it was in the early 90s.
Right,
My mom
yes,
had
yes,
one,
yes. But I didn't know anyone that had one. But
believe me, my mom had one,
Oh,
and this was when I
wow.
was still living in the Philippines, and this thing was just about as heavy as her car. But it had
Wow.
such a strong signal, and when people would get into the car, they'd be like, Philip, what is that?
Oh,
I didn't know
wow.
if they thought it was a bomb or something. It was so big and heavy, and if it didn't have the keys on it, they wouldn't have known it was a phone. They probably would have thought, what is this, like a
Yes.
rocket pack or something? But look at how big it started out.
Yes.
And look at how the phones
yes,
are now.
Yes.
Look at how big our computers were before.
Yeah.
And
They
look
took
at
up
how
like rooms. They literally were in 2 or 3 rooms, a computer.
it's like it was like having another person living in your household because it was so big. There were so many things to it. I thought I would have to feed it and, get it a social security number. It was so big. But now it's so compact and it's like, oh, okay, I can just take this with me. It's like, wow, and do you think everything has gotten so small, but it does so much more
So
than what
much,
technology
yes,
has done
yeah.
before.
Like it's like they put all that information in a compact little, device,
Yes.
and you've got everything you need in that little small little package there.
And here's the thing, we have the ability to do that
Yes.
with our own minds, with our creativity. How else would this technology have come about
There
if
you
it
go.
were not from the thoughts
Yes,
and the ideas that
right.
people had?
That's so true.
Right?
So true.
And
Brilliant minds.
Exactly, brilliant minds. And, we are going to keep evolving, but if we keep letting the technology evolve itself
Yes.
without our involvement
Yes,
in it,
yes,
that's
yes.
the time that we're going to lose touch with what we can actually do as people.
I so agree with
Okay.
that. I so agree.
And that's what's going to happen in terms of being what we call to be too dependent
Yes.
on technology.
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to start losing that interactions with one another, that empathy with one another, if we don't get a handle of getting together and stop hiding behind these devices for communication. Like I said, it's as long as it doesn't overtake your entire social life, your entire life in general, the way that you communicate. It's one thing, but when it completely, devours every piece of your time, spending time with people, and that's the only way that you're starting to do it, then it becomes a problem.
Yes, it does. And I mentioned about living with regret and resentment.
Yes.
Okay. these are two things. I mean, there's many other emotions, but these particular ones, okay, especially with
Strong
what we've been going
words.
through and what you've mentioned about the PTSD,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you know, there is so much that you can do moving forward, okay, but these two things will stop you from moving forward in
Mm.
anything,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and you mix technology in with that, it will be even more of a hindrance for you
Yes,
to not get past these things. You know, you have an excuse to not communicate with someone just
right.
as much as you have an ability to communicate with them through these devices. You
Yeah.
have just as much ability to shut them out,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it makes regret and resentment easier to
Yeah.
breed
Yes.
in that kind
Yes.
of
Yes.
environment,
Yeah.
okay?
Yes. Yeah.
So I tell people, you know, whenever I hear that anybody has lost somebody, and in 2021 I lost two of my cousins,
Oh,
it was
sorry.
very difficult because we were not able to do the traditional things, especially for my cousin that lived in the Philippines. I mean,
Okay.
even his family could not go. I mean, very selective people had to
Oh.
go. But it brought a lot of us back together that we've not been seeing. Thank goodness for that part of
Yes.
technology.
Yeah. Right.
But also the loss that you endure, okay, it's something that you do need to deal with, like with any other emotion,
Mm-hmm.
okay? This has also given an excuse to people that have damaged relationships to not fix those
That's
relationships
right.
too,
That's right. That's
okay?
right.
You know what? Opinions fly left and right.
Mm-hmm.
And it was never that there were never opinions.
Right.
But you factor everything in that's been happening through the pandemic, opinions,
Mm-hmm.
social changes, social anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
relationships
Yes.
either blossoming or failing at this point.
Yes.
So many things were happening all at once. And now that it's kind of coming out in the clear, it's like, well, you know what? These differences in opinion
Mm-hmm.
are too important for me to
Yes.
continue a friendship, to continue a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
There's the resentment.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And if you lose that person, not just through death,
Yeah.
if you lose touch with that person,
Yes.
okay, and something happens to you or something happens to that person, I guarantee you that there is not one person that would say that they would not feel regret, no matter how bad
Mm-hmm.
an argument was, no matter how bad a disagreement was. Absent of something really,
Yes. Is a
really
big.
horrible,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, we don't realize just how much emphasis we put on differences that really break up friendships and relationships.
Yeah. I
Okay?
mean, political issues have broken up friendships and relationships. I mean, literally, families have divided behind political issues. So it can happen over the smallest of things.
And that happens because we really do take things
Mm-hmm.
very personally.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
hard not to take things
Right.
personally.
Right.
We're only human.
Only
You will
human.
want to take things personally, but these differences that exist, these differences in opinions, okay? Think of all the time that you have spent with close friends,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Are you talking about your differences all the time, or are you really trying to enjoy the things that you enjoy doing together?
Right.
Some people have a dysfunctional friendship or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
relationship where they thrive on all of these
Yeah.
differences,
Right.
okay?
Right.
And other people just don't talk about it,
Right.
okay? I think what we also need to get down to here is that the availability of technology makes your opinions magnified by 1,000 times.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay?
I so
Before
agree.
all of this happened, you had an opinion, unless you really brought it up in a forum with your friends or family or anybody,
Mm-hmm.
you don't really know. Now somebody posts something on Facebook, on Instagram, they tweet something,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody sees it, oh my God, I can't believe they said that. Oh my God, I
Right.
can't believe they think that
Yes.
way. Well,
Yes.
they must think that way about
Yes.
me too.
Yes.
Well, you know what? I'm just not going to talk to them. I'm going to remove
Uh-huh.
them.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to follow them. I'm not going to be friends with them.
There you go.
And then what happens? You're down that rabbit hole
Yes.
of resentment.
Yes. Yes.
Okay?
Yes. And it happens very quickly.
It does,
Very
and it happens so quickly, and then sooner or later you're harboring a
Mm-hmm.
grudge and this resentment towards people, or they're doing it to you.
Yes. Yes.
Okay?
And we had talked about an example of your having, feeling that way at some point after your father died.
Oh, I mean,
And you had to let that go, or, because it was starting to really compromise certain things in your life.
It really was. I mean, with all the losses that I was feeling in 2013, I didn't want my dad to know about what was happening. He, fortunately, in the first half of 2013 was experiencing an upswing, and his health was actually getting a little bit better. But the medical professionals at the assisted living facility explained to us that once you come off of hospice care, you do experience this upswing, and you experience like
Oh.
it's almost like they're doing really well. Okay,
Oh.
but then when I detected that he started to not do so well and everything that was happening to me personally, I didn't want him to get worried.
Mm.
And I didn't want to communicate with him because I didn't want him to detect anything
That
that
was
was
going on
happening,
with
because I
you.
don't think I could really mask it at that point with
Mm-hmm.
all the losses that I was feeling. So I just chose not to make any extra effort to communicate with him.
Okay.
And when I found out that he was getting sicker, I came back from my trip, and 2 days before I was leaving to go see him
Mm-hmm.
and to be with him, because the doctor was saying that he probably didn't have much longer to live.
Oh, okay.
He died 2 days before I was able to get
Oh no.
to him in Arizona, and it took many years before I could talk about that without getting
Yes.
emotionally
Yeah.
distraught and breaking down and crying. But I had so much regret because of
Mm.
the decisions that I made not to communicate with him, um, and it affected the way that I made decisions about my life personally.
Okay.
I mean, I wanted to start over, and I did, but the choices that I made in terms of friends, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of people that I dated, in terms of people that I wanted to pursue a relationship with, I was trying to fill that void that I was feeling with the regret,
Okay.
okay, and resenting myself
Mm.
for making those decisions, okay, until you're actually able to let go of that, okay,
Yeah.
you can't really start to heal. And everything that is available on social media, it ties right back to technology again. It was a way for me to hide behind the regret and the
Mm-hmm.
resentment,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and if you're not aware of how you're feeling or what triggers you or what makes you triggered in a situation,
Yeah.
you're really out of touch with
Yes.
yourself.
Yes.
And technology can do that to you. It can help you, or it can provide this escape, and you can just be
Behind
completely
it. Yes.
oblivious
Yep. And
and
not
stand
feel.
behind the technology and
Mm-hmm.
not have to deal with things.
That's right.
Only when I started to deal with it did I feel much more at peace with myself. Why regret?
Yes.
Why resent?
Yes.
Why have to start a new normal? Just not make it a new beginning and move
I
forward.
love that. I love
right?
that analogy. I absolutely do. And the new normal can be a new beginning for better than what you left.
Yes.
What you left before probably wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. When everyone keeps on saying that, let's go back to that. That wasn't all. You know what I mean? All. So to me, like you said, move forward in a better direction, a more productive. You could be better than you were before, and before that.
Yes.
Like start a new beginning. That's where we should start with that like that new normal stuff that everyone keeps using. That should be the new normal, a new beginning, not the new norm. Like going back to normal. That
Yeah,
should be like
going back to- I
a
mean-
dinosaur analogy. You know
I mean,
what
the
I
fact
mean?
that you're saying going back.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
One
There
thing,
it is, right
you're
there.
going back.
Yes.
Okay, why go back when you can move forward?
Forward.
With
Yeah, I
something
so
completely
agree.
different.
And better, like you said, because we've learned so many lessons within this time period that you should have come out with way more, things that that you've learned and that you've discovered than you did before 2 years ago, before this all. So the normal, that's like I said, old news now. It's like new news, 2 years ahead. You've learned more, you've discovered more, a lot of things have changed in 2 years, and you should not still be in that space where you were before. That just goes to show that you are not growing. If you haven't, if you want to go back to that, then you're not growing,
I agree
and
with
that's
that.
not a healthy way to be. That's not a healthy thing.
I mean, it's just healthy attitudes are something that people really take for granted. They think that staying healthy, going to work out, eating right, is pretty much the whole equation.
Mm-hmm.
But a healthy attitude towards things
That's right.
really makes a very
It
big
makes
difference.
a huge difference.
Okay,
Huge.
and it helps with the stress that you feel. It helps with the anxiety that you feel.
So huge.
If you are able to change your outlook, not because somebody is telling you to do it or not because technology is swaying you that way, because you want to look at things a different way and you acknowledge that
Yes.
some things have worked and some things have not.
Yeah.
Okay, and you find the right balance of everything. That's the beginning of a healthy attitude.
I so agree. So agree with you. So agree. Well, this is a very wonderful topic. I'm hoping that everyone got something out of this today. And walked away with some great tips that we, have. Did you
Yes.
want to add anything else before we end the show?
Well, I mean, I think we've pretty much covered everything, but I think the thing that we should leave listeners with is that, technology is not bad.
Right.
And neither are your feelings and being in touch with them. A lot
Right.
of people feel that if they're in touch, and I'm making air quotes right
Yes,
now, with
right.
your feelings, that it makes you vulnerable.
Right.
Just as much as you need to learn the technology that you're using, whether it's a new tablet, a new laptop, a new phone, and really figure out how to do things, okay, so that you know the features of what you're using, you need to know your triggers and you need to be in touch with your feelings.
Yes,
okay?
yes. And
If I asked you to define an emotion, how do you describe an emotion?
you really can't describe it, really. 'Cause
But you can feel it. You
you
know
can
that you
feel
feel
it,
it.
right.
But, so being aware of it
Mm-hmm.
is sometimes a lot more useful than trying to define it.
Right,
Okay.
right. I like that. I like that. And then, the other takeaway today is, try to continue to build healthy relationships with family and friends,
Or rebuild.
or rebuild
In
them.
this case, too.
Yes. And if they don't work in that direction, try to make it right with yourself. Make it right with yourself where you can sit with it and not have those resentment and regrets on you. So if it doesn't, you don't see a way to make it with that, make it right with yourself. And then that way, when you go to meet new friends and, new, partners or whatever, you can have a healthy relationship with whoever you come in contact with. If it's not the people that you used to know before.
Yeah.
So this was an awesome show. And
thanks.
I thank you for coming on. Hopefully
Thank you
we'll
for
have you
having
on
me
another
again.
time.
Yes, I would love it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you all out there for listening. We'll be back here every Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You're listening to KVCM Monarch Radio. This is the Blender. And as I always say, stay positive, test negative. Thanks for listening.